Well, you can see we got some beautiful orchids with us right now, and that is because the Newport Harbor Orchid Society is having their expo and sale coming up this weekend up in Westminster. And with us once again to talk about it is Joe Rupp. Joe, always good to see you.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
And we both wanted to be here because I love to hear all about your orchids.
You brought a couple different ones this time.
Both of these orchids are from the same general area of the world. That particular orchid is called a Paphiopedilum. It's referred to oftentimes as a slipper orchid or a Venus orchid. It grows in Southeast Asia, China, the Indian subcontinent, and down into the Pacific Islands. It's what they call an epiphytic orchid. It grows on trees.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And lithophytic, that type of orchid grows generally on trees, but it can also grow on rocks. So it's they're two different kinds of orchids, but they generally grow in the same area of the world.
Wow.
I'll be darned.
So a couple things on these two orchids, since they look so different. I don't seem to ever recall one that looks especially like this one. That I wouldn't even, if I looked at that, would you think that was an orchid?
Not at all.
No.
It's called a Dendrobium.
Okay.
And this particular variety grows in Australia.
Okay.
And it has to go through a drying out period because this type of year is their summer.
Right.
So it's hot and dry. And they generally require a drying out period. So this orchid, I've ignored it for probably the better part of 2 months. And then when I start to see flower spikes coming from the center of the leaf axil, that's when you decide to start watering them and fertilizing them.
Oh, how interesting. Huh. Now, you said it was in Australia, so I'm imagining that because of the fires, there must have been a lot of those lost.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It might...
Are they harder to get because of Australia's fires, do you
Haven't
think?
heard that so far.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Now, what about the care and maintenance? I've said that I've got a few, and right now there's 3 on our kitchen windowsill. 2 have flowers on them again, and one of them doesn't yet. I don't know if it will. And one of the things I've always wondered about, not so much about these, but you get the long flower spike. And when I get the little flowers on there, they'll last 2 months easily. And then they'll start to, dry out, and sometimes they even change color. They start out more of a pinkish color, and then as they get a little bit older, they almost turn orange.
Yeah.
And then they start to fall off. And then I'm always wondering, I'm used to going out and I know how to prune a rose. I know how to, whatever it might be. But with orchids, I'm always like, okay, what do I do now? Do I
next?
leave that stick on there for a whole year and it falls off on its own?
A stick.
Do you understand what I'm asking?
If you leave that stick long enough and the flower falls off, then the stick is going to turn brown and die.
Okay.
There is a trick to get it to produce another flower.
Oh, please tell us.
Because with that particular orchid, they have little growth nodes along the stem.
Okay.
And if you want to stimulate or get it to produce another flower spike, when the plant loses the last flower on the stem, then if you go down to the node, the little growth node that is closest to the base of the plant, if you find that one, then make a cut just above it, about an inch above it.
Okay.
And if you wait maybe 3 weeks or so, it'll start to produce new. If you're lucky, it'll start to produce a new growth bud, and then you'll have a whole new flower stem.
Oh my gosh.
Now, does that mean the following year you'll have 2 flower stems coming up? Or you're just kind of stimulating it to go again?
Yeah, you're stimulating it to go again.
And can you keep doing that over and over
No,
again?
you don't want to do it more than once because it really saps a lot of energy from the plant to produce flowers.
Okay.
So if you do it more often, it weakens the plant, and the chances are that you might very well lose it.
Okay. What about a plant like this? Because, again, it doesn't look like what I call, what I think of as traditional, and it doesn't really have the long flower spikes. So what do you do with this? Just let them, like any other plant, they fall off and you cut it back to the leaves?
Yeah. It's, once the flower dies, the spike, we call this a flower spike.
Okay.
Once that dies, the flowers fall off. It's done for the year. So then you can expect it to come and do this again next year if it's
Okay.
at the right environment.
And so you would cut that back almost like you would on
Yeah.
a rose plant or something, cut it back not all the way, but maybe
You just take
to
that,
one of the.
take this right here.
Okay,
and
and
then
kind of where a
it'll
little
turn
bump
brown
in
and
it
die.
is,
The
yeah.
flower
Right.
flies off, and then just to clean the plant up, you'd cut that off.
Okay,
And then next year, that was
so that to me would be, even though you told me it has a drying out period, that for me would be more like a traditional kind of a plant. In other words, the pruning of it.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I like that one a lot.
Yeah. Now, where do you? If I was going to get this plant here, where would I buy it?
you'll buy it at our
Your event, that's
orchid show.
right.
Yeah, yeah. There are plants like this that'll be available.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And there's some special things about this plant that's unusual for an orchid. Tell me about those.
This particular plant likes to grow in very bright light.
Okay.
It doesn't like to be watered heavily. You want to let it go slightly dry between waterings. And I think one of the easiest suggestions I can offer somebody who doesn't know when to water them is to water the plant and then get a feel for how heavy it is when it's wet.
Okay.
And then as it grows drier, it's going to lighten up. So when you feel it's light enough, then just water it again.
Oh, that's
and
a
let
good
water run through it.
Yeah.
It helps because it helps leach the salts out of the soil. Tap water has a lot of calcium and a lot of salts.
Okay.
And if you just continue to water it without allowing it to rinse out those salts, then what happens is you get leaf burn and it turns brown at the edges.
Okay.
Yeah, that's typically a salt buildup.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good tip. Excellent. And then this one smells, right? Or this one has a fragrance?
It's not fragrant right now, but it really, in bright sun, it'll do very
Oh,
well. I mean,
okay.
it becomes, in fact, there are varieties of this orchid that are huge that produce so much fragrance that if they were in a room, it might be a little overpowering to be there
Wow.
with them.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
the Australian, what they call the speciosum orchids, they're large and they produce huge amounts of flowers.
What about fertilizer? I have orchid fertilizer at home. It's water soluble. You know, it's one of those that has very high, the 3 numbers are on there. It's like 20, 20, 20 or something like that. Almost like a super bloom type fertilizer. Is that good to use, not to use?
Sure.
How often?
There are members of our society that use that particular fertilizer exclusively. There is a general rule of thumb that if you can fertilize weekly, that is, cut the dosage in half and water them and fertilize them once a week. That's probably the ideal situation, but a lot of people don't want to take the time to do that. So every other week, according to generally the instructions on the bottle, is ideal. They don't require very much fertilizer at all in the wintertime. They're not growing a lot. So it's probably better to just cut way back on the fertilizer during the wintertime. And
Even when the flowers are, because that's where I get my flowers now.
yeah,
Yeah. So
Well-
they don't really need the fertilizer then?
some orchids are go into hibernation during the wintertime.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're probably right that they would require fertilizer
Okay.
if they're producing flowers.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Wow.
So let's hear about the Orchid Expo and sale that you have coming up.
Yeah.
It's at Westminster Mall this coming weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay.
The hours are from 10 to 9 on Friday, 10 to 8 on Saturday, and 11 to 6 on Sunday. We have potting workshops. So at 2 o'clock on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, for $6, we'll show people how to repot orchids. We'll provide the pot, the bark, and the plant.
Oh,
So
that's
for $6, they get a plant
Wow.
to take home with them.
That's nice.
That's really
Yeah.
good. So they're not going to bring their plant in.
No, they don't have to
Okay.
bring their plant.
Okay.
Typically, we'll provide the plant, the pot, and the bark.
Okay.
And
then
show
you
'em
also
how to do it.
And then you have a sale. So obviously you'll have some like these that are available.
Yeah,
Okay.
there'll be plants like this. We have about 15 vendors, and so it'll be a lot of fun.
That's
And,
great.
there are some magnificent orchids, and we will have Orchid Society displays. So there'll be some beautiful orchids on display, and also the Vietnamese Society, I believe, is going to provide a display of bonsai plants and
Oh,
artwork.
that's nice
Oh,
too.
that'd be
And the
great.
bonsais are just magnificent.
Yeah.
They are, and the way that you have to trim them specifically too.
Oh yeah.
Very delicate.
It's an art form.
Exactly.
Now,
Exactly.
of course, we want to get people to go to your show, but if they can't make it, what other places can you go? Where do you get your orchids, or where would you suggest that people can go? Just, of course, you've got Green Thumb Nursery
Yeah.
here. You even see them at Trader Joe's and places like that.
Locally, I don't know of a commercial grower in Orange County that somebody can go to. There are orchid growers down in San Diego area,
Okay.
on Vista, Encinitas. There are several orchid growers down there who have nurseries who will accept visitors.
Oh, great.
Okay, good.
Some orchid growers don't really want visitors because they don't really sell in that fashion.
Yeah.
But there's an orchid grower called Angie's Orchids down in Encinitas. There's another one called Sunset Valley down in
Okay.
Vista. Beautiful plants.
Okay.
They grow a lot of Cattleya type orchids.
Well, that's good to know. People
Yeah.
can look online and
Yeah,
find out what is available, because you can always get like I said, you go to Trader Joe's or wherever and you get some nice ones and
Yeah.
they'll last a long time. But if you want something really unique,
yeah.
you're not going to find it there generally.
No, it's kind of hit and miss. Most
Yeah.
of them are the Phalaenopsis type orchids,
Right.
what they call a moth orchid.
Yeah.
And occasionally you get something like this, but most of the time that's the type, because they last a long time. They don't require a lot of maintenance.
Right. Yeah. Very
Excellent.
good.
Now, where are you guys located at the Westminster Mall? Tell us where the location is.
We'll be outside of J.C. Penney's on the second floor.
Okay. Is that a new location for you this year?
No, we've been there
Okay, good.
for probably the last 3 or 4 years.
All right, good.
It's ideal for us because we can fit all of our vendors in that general area.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's outside the Penney's entrance to the mall on the second floor.
Okay. Oh, perfect.
All
Okay.
right.
Good.
And by the way, the website is nhosinfo.org.
Yes.
You can find out more about that there. And if people want information on joining the society and getting more involved, and
Yeah,
very
we'll be
good.
happy to. And also we'll be doing an orchid auction at our society meeting later on this month. So
Okay.
Very good.
Nice.
anyway,
Yeah, it's
Well,
always
thank
good to
you.
have you on
Good
and to see
information.
these.
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And am I right? You do another show later on in the year as
Yeah,
well,
we
right?
we generally schedule one in August or September.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's more of a garden show, although most of the vendors are orchid vendors, but we have vendors that produce just tropical plants.
Okay.
Oh, well, hopefully we'll have you on again and you can bring some of those
Yeah.
samples.
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
All right,
thank
Joe,
you.
always good to see you. Thank you for
thank
coming
you.
on. And again, this is this coming weekend, Westminster Mall, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. A lot of fun. It's free to get in, free to park, and you can enjoy learning about orchids and doing a class and buying some and just having a great time. Thanks again.
Oh,
Perfect.
you're
Thank
quite
you.
welcome.
All right, we'll be right back.